World Cups have one winner, we know that, but in 1950 it wasn't as straightforward. The entire world had just emerged from a decade of war. Football had been at the back of their minds. The United Kingdom had isolated themselves. As the game's creators, they didn't see the need to prove themselves. But this tournament was about to change all of that. South America wanted to play. And what followed is an unbelievable tale of underdogs rising, dancing feet, a stage where the footballing identities of nations were realized, along with the birth of football as we know it. So, who actually won the 1950 World Cup? Determining a champion has always been simple. Uruguay knew it when they won the final at the World Cup in 1930. So did Italy, who surprised the world when they won the next two editions, lifting the trophy in 1934 and 38. But after this, things weren't as simple anymore, and football had taken a back seat. It's crazy to think that little over a year after Italy had won the last World Cup, the world would be at war, and the trophy for the biggest sporting event in the world was stashed and hidden beneath an Italian bed for a decade. Once the world had finally emerged from the smog of war, football would need to provide something truly special to shake the fans awake and capture the attention of the world again. With most of Europe in ruins, Brazil had put out the call, which to us makes sense. The brilliant Brazil, with their samba footwork and magical players. The earth on their map might as well be a football. But during this time, this perception did not exist, and it will be forged in the flames of this tournament, along with the identity of everyone else who came. They would all play in a never-before-seen tournament format, a league system. The winners of each group would make up a final table. Once they had played each other once, the country with the most points would be crowned the winner. No knockouts, no semi-final drama or final action. But football has a funny way of doing its own thing, even when the organizers think they've planned for everything. Huddled beneath the towering stands of the Maracanazo, the Uruguayans were preparing to take on Brazil for the final match of the tournament. It was impossible to focus, with the sound of almost 200,000 spectators singing and screaming for their beloved Brazil. The Uruguayans, stranded underneath the stadium in the middle of Rio, would never have felt further away from their home before. For one of the players, it was too much. It is said that he wet himself during the walkout. When the players looked up at the Brazilian flag flying proudly at the top of the stadium, they would have seen that it had accidentally been raised upside down. Whether it was an ominous sign of things to come or not, once the night had been through, the Uruguayans would not only claim the name of the stadium, but play the most iconic match in World Cup history. The sound of 200,000 fans shook the stadium to its core, but in truth, Brazil had already shaken the entire footballing world. No one had played like them. No one looked like them, and in this tournament, something greater than just results had begun to form. This was where footballing identities were forged, where nations began to discover how they would play and how they would be remembered. While the world was at war, Brazil had built a vibrant footballing world. The game had been adopted by the masses. It wasn't just the elite, the working class poured their hearts into the sport. What followed was a style of play becoming a reflection of their world, and the sport becoming a building block for their national identity. The tournament was a chance for Brazil to show the world their true colors. They didn't just live the game, they were good. They would dominate their group and defeat group winners Sweden and Spain 7-1 and 6-1. To top it off, they had defeated Uruguay 5-1 a month before the tournament. No one was even close to their level. England, having skipped the first 3 World Cups, confident they were the rightful kings of the sport, had finally made their debut in this tournament too. This was meant to be their coronation, a chance for the creators of the game to assert their dominance on the world stage. Instead, they crashed out on the group stage, losing to Spain, and most famously suffering a shocking 1-0 defeat to the United States. When they returned to Brazil in 2014, 64 years later, history repeated itself. A loss to Uruguay and another early exit, a pattern in the English game that can be traced back all the way to 1950. And a feeling that lives on today. Uruguay's hopes were bleak. In the final group of challengers, Brazil had dominated opponents that they had struggled against. They were 1 point behind the leaders. Brazil only needed a draw in the final match to crown themselves champions of the world for the first time. But anything can happen in a final, even if this wasn't supposed to be one. Before the match had even kicked off, the nation and the world as a whole were already celebrating the Brazilians as champions. Winners' medals with players' names, news headlines declaring victory, and victory speeches from politicians. I'm sure you've already guessed what will happen next. The Brazilian captain guessed it too, when he saw the way journalists were interviewing his teammates and referring to them as world champions. He would tell his son before the match, "We're going to lose." But it's the way that it happened that left the biggest imprint on the footballing world. Varela, the Uruguayan captain, brought the newspapers into the changing room before the match. They lined the floors of the bathroom with them. And when Juan Lopez, the team's manager, informed them that the only hope against this formidable opponent would be to play defensively, the moment he had left the room, Varela stood up and delivered the most famous line in his nation's footballing history. First, he urged his teammates to go against the words of their manager. He told them he meant well, but if they followed these instructions, they would definitely lose. He told them to attack, to ignore the fans, ignore the words from the opposition. Everyone on the outside were simply stick dolls. Que comience la función. Let the show begin. To the outsiders, it seemed the match was already over before it had begun. Brazil walked onto that field for the final match as world champions. Even the spirited Uruguayans felt the power of Brazil. Before the first half was even over, they had scored. This is where we see Uruguay's football identity emerge. They might only just have squeezed through to be the final challenger against the Brazilians, but it was because they had a fire that is impossible to put out, even when the world was against them. The moment the ball went in, Varela and his fellow defenders grabbed the ball and refused to give it up. They demanded the referee to chalk the goal off as offside. And they did it exclusively in Spanish, knowing the English ref wouldn't be able to understand a word they were saying. The truth is, it wasn't about the offside at all. They were simply killing time to take the sting out of the Brazilian game. And it worked. The ref had to scramble for a translator. The ordeal had taken so long that the 200,000 fans had fallen silent. The energy was gone, and the Uruguayans were able to survive until the half, only 1 goal behind. The delay in the game might seem like a small thing, but it was a tactic beyond the sport. It was out of desperation, out of a sheer unwillingness to lose, a moment that defined Uruguayan football for generations, and can still be seen to this day. When they had come out for the second half, the match felt different. Uruguay would turn the game around, winning 2-1 and completing the biggest upset in sporting history. The Maracanazo smash, as it would be known, haunts the Brazilians to this day. That famous yellow kit we associate with Brazil, that was only adopted after their original kit was shunned due to this loss. But that same kit would face the effects of 1950 when Brazil lost 7-1 to Germany on home soil in 2014. The ghosts of 1950 have followed teams into the future, and ultimately, the 1950 World Cup didn't crown a champion with a trophy in a true final, but it did something else. It made legends that still shape the game today, and will for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I've introduced channel memberships. If you're interested in supporting me, make more videos like this. You'll be able to give a video assist with suggested topics as well. I really appreciate you watching. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Have a great day, and goodbye.